They thought turning 65 meant fading into silence. But what if that silence was engineered? Behind closed doors, policy drafts are quietly stripping voting influence from older citizens, masked as modern reforms. Retirement communities? Targeted with algorithmic disinformation campaigns. National town halls? Silenced through bureaucratic loopholes. Why? Because those over 65 hold something dangerously powerful: memory, wisdom, and clarity. And in a system built on short-term gain and digital noise, that's a threat. In this video, we'll expose what's really happening, from subtle media manipulation to government contracts designed to mute senior voices before the next election. What's at stake isn't just your vote. It's your right to shape the world your grandchildren will inherit. The real question is, will they let you? Or are you already too late? Hit like, subscribe, and let's go. In today's world, political influence is measured in data, not decades of life experience. While technology accelerates everything around us, from digital voting systems to AI-generated campaigns, one demographic is being left behind on purpose. Adults over 65, once respected as carriers of history, are now subtly being reframed as obsolete, out of touch, even dangerous to progress. But how did we get here? Just 50 years ago, senior citizens were the moral spine of democracy. They led protests, voted in record numbers, and passed wisdom down like a living library. Now, they're more likely to be targeted by misinformation, excluded from online discussions, or left without proper digital tools to engage at all. The digital divide has become a political weapon, and it's widening. Mainstream platforms slowly removed age-inclusive features. Government outreach has shifted almost entirely online. Entire sections of the electorate, veterans, retired educators, lifelong voters, are being digitally erased without anyone ever saying it out loud. And it goes deeper. Modern political strategies now analyze which age groups are worth investing in. And increasingly, older voters are flagged as high cost, low return. That's not just cold, it's calculated. And it's happening while global decisions about war, climate, healthcare, and freedom are being made by younger, data-driven actors, often with no real memory of how fragile society truly is. The question isn't whether older voices matter. It's whether anyone's still listening, or whether someone, somewhere, is making sure we don't. It didn't happen overnight. The quiet sidelining of older generations began decades ago, not with a declaration, but with a shift in strategy. In the early 2000s, political consultants realized something: data wins elections faster than experience. Campaigns moved online. Voter engagement turned into targeted advertising. And with every passing year, the system began to favor those who were already digitally fluent. Younger, faster, more predictable. At first, it looked harmless. New apps for civic engagement, digital-only town halls, policy proposals live-streamed instead of mailed. But beneath that convenience was a silent exclusion. Older voters, many of whom built the very systems being replaced, were never taught how to navigate this new world. And no one cared. By 2015, major political parties had already reduced funding for senior outreach programs. Tech companies adjusted algorithms to push trend-relevant political content, automatically downgrading posts or pages that didn't match youth-driven engagement metrics. Then came the reports, unspoken, internal documents labeling seniors as voter clutter. Not enemies, just unnecessary. In 2021, a leaked strategic memo from a high-level campaign office shocked analysts. It openly suggested minimizing policy promises to elderly voters, citing shortened political lifespan as justification. Let that sink in. A lifetime of contribution, dismissed because someone ran the numbers and decided you wouldn't be around long enough to matter. This wasn't just a technological gap anymore. It was the beginning of a slow, systemic purge, a political erasure dressed in digital language. And if it started in silence, how loud will it be when it finally becomes impossible to ignore? By 2023, less than 4% of all federal digital engagement initiatives were designed with adults over 65 in mind. 4%. In a country where seniors make up nearly 20% of the population. That's not an oversight, that's erasure. In a survey conducted by the Pew Research Center, 63% of older Americans reported difficulty accessing government services online. But the response from policymakers? Silence. Budgets were redirected to youth civic acceleration. Senior assistance hotlines were replaced by AI chatbots with no voice option. Digital-only voter registration systems appeared in over a dozen states, often without in-person alternatives, a silent barrier wrapped in efficiency. And it doesn't stop there. In leaked campaign training materials from two separate political firms, canvassers were advised to avoid neighborhoods with high retiree density, citing low ROI and time wastage. Let that language settle in. Time wastage. We are talking about citizens who marched for civil rights, served in wars, built the infrastructure we still rely on, now reduced to statistical inconvenience. Even more disturbing, several AI-driven political targeting platforms have begun using predictive age modeling, which not only deprioritizes senior voters and messaging, but may soon begin filtering their online posts under the guise of relevance. You won't be banned. You'll simply disappear from the algorithm, unheard, unseen. And if you think this is accidental, think again. These tools are being designed, tested, and deployed by people who benefit from your silence. The danger is not in what you've lost, but in how little anyone seems to care that it's gone. Here's the part no one wants to talk about. Some of these systems, the ones quietly sidelining older generations, are no longer even controlled by humans. In 2024, several campaign organizations began using what's known as predictive voter viability modeling, AI tools that calculate how likely someone is to influence policy outcomes based on age, income, engagement history, and estimated remaining lifespan. That's right. You are now being categorized not by your values, but by your expiration date. These systems don't ask, what has this person survived? They ask, will they still be here in 10 years to vote again? And if the answer is no, the algorithm simply moves on. Scientists who studied these tools raised early concerns. Dr. Leah Montrose, an AI ethics researcher at MIT, warned in a 2022 paper, when we allow non-human systems to assign human worth based on statistical longevity, we cross a moral threshold from which there may be no return. But that warning? Ignored. Because the systems worked. Engagement rates rose, campaign costs dropped, and the quiet purging of low-longevity voters became an unspoken norm. It's not illegal. It's not even hidden. It's happening right now, coded into tools with names like Smart Vote and Pulse Target. And here's the real twist. These systems are still learning. They adapt. They optimize. And with every new election cycle, they get better at deciding who counts and who doesn't. So, ask yourself, if a machine decides your voice no longer matters, how long before people stop hearing it too? Right now, in some of the most advanced research labs across the US, scientists and data engineers are creating tools they believe will optimize democracy. On paper, the goal is noble: reduce noise, increase turnout, target the disengaged. But here's what they don't mention. These same technologies, machine learning voter filters, real-time sentiment scorers, behavioral prediction engines, are also learning how to quietly phase out those deemed statistically inefficient. And age is one of the easiest signals to read. In 2025, a major university study revealed that AI voter segmentation tools could now predict a person's political leanings, health status, and even medication dependency, all within 38 seconds of online interaction. That's not science fiction, that's now. And when those predictions feed into political strategy platforms, they begin to shape who receives which message, or whether they receive anything at all. For older adults, this often means silence. No push notifications, no targeted messages, no visibility. Meanwhile, AI-assisted polling tools automatically reduce the statistical weight of responses from older participants, labeling them as legacy bias. Translation: if your opinion doesn't match the desired outcome, it's filtered out. And the worst part? These systems are praised as neutral because they're driven by data, not emotion. But data can discriminate. Coldly, precisely, without malice, and without mercy. The question is no longer, is this happening? It's how long before we stop calling this progress and start calling it what it really is. Some say it's just evolution, a natural shift toward digital efficiency, faster systems, younger minds. The world moves forward, they argue, and not everyone can keep up. In closed-door think tanks and behind conference stage curtains, strategists call it generational optimization. Not discrimination, not exclusion, just progress. But progress always casts a shadow. And now, that shadow is swallowing voices once seen as pillars of wisdom. Alternative theories are beginning to surface, from concerned academics, retired technologists, even whistleblowers. One group of researchers has suggested that some AI platforms are no longer just responding to data. They're subtly shaping public behavior by deprioritizing less malleable demographics. Translation? If you're less likely to change your mind, you're less likely to be heard. Others point to a darker hypothesis, that the sidelining of older generations is part of a broader strategy to rewrite societal memory. Erase those who remember wars, resistance, collapses, recoveries, and you erase the warning signs for what's coming next. But then there's the uncomfortable question. What if this isn't an attack, but a defense mechanism? What if younger systems are protecting themselves from the burden of legacy thought? Is this about power or survival? Somewhere between strategic silence and algorithmic logic, the line has blurred. What went wrong? Perhaps nothing. Perhaps this is exactly how it was designed to work, not with violence, but with vanishing. And if that's true, then what happens when your memory becomes the threat? The impact was slow, then sudden. Communities that once thrived on dialogue and intergenerational exchange began to fracture. Older citizens, left out of civic decisions, filtered out of discussions, digitally muted, started to vanish from public life. Town meetings grew quieter. Letters to representatives went unanswered. Even protest footage, when shared by seniors, was algorithmically buried. Globally, patterns emerged. Countries with aging populations saw dramatic shifts in power dynamics. Laws were passed with almost no input from those over 65. Healthcare budgets were optimized, pensions restructured, historical education diluted. The consequence? A generation that once held the memory of conflict, of survival, of rebuilding, was strategically excluded from shaping what came next. But the danger wasn't just social, it was structural. Without the stabilizing presence of older voices, policies became reactive, short-term, impulsive. AI governance systems, praised for their speed and neutrality, lacked the emotional memory to recognize long-term human cost. A new class of leadership emerged, data-native, emotionally efficient, but historically blind. And in that void, something shifted. Without memory, we lost foresight. Without resistance, we lost balance. Some began calling it the new silence, a phase where the past was no longer suppressed, but simply omitted. And in this silence, one truth crystallized. This wasn't the rise of something smarter. It was the quiet fall of something deeply human. So now the question becomes painfully clear. If we've built a future where wisdom no longer has value, who or what are we letting decide what comes next? The time has come for a choice that will determine not just the future of older generations, but the very fabric of our society. The question is no longer about whether technology will continue to advance, it will. The question is whether we, as a collective, will allow that progress to erase the very qualities that make us human: wisdom, history, and the ability to see beyond the present moment. Will we continue down a path where efficiency is measured in cold algorithms, where those who remember are left in silence, unseen, and unheard? Or will we, as a society, rise above this technological tide and remind ourselves that progress must not come at the cost of humanity? The problem isn't the technology itself, it's how we choose to wield it. Are we prepared to trade memory for speed, history for convenience? The very system that we created to enhance our lives is now threatening to erase the very things that make us human. We stand at a crossroads. Do we allow this silent purge to continue, or do we take a stand? Do we accept that we are defined by our productivity, or do we embrace that we are more than that? The choice is ours, but the longer we wait, the more the past will fade, and the harder it will be to reclaim what we've lost. If we allow this moment to pass without action, we risk becoming a society that is not only technologically advanced but morally bankrupt. So, what will it be? Will we evolve? or will we lose it all? I'm not telling you this because it's some far-off possibility. This is happening right now. As you watch this, somewhere, an algorithm is quietly deciding who matters and who doesn't. Somewhere, someone is being erased, not violently, but without even a whisper. You might think, it's not my problem, or I'm not old enough to be affected. But here's the truth. This doesn't discriminate. Today it's someone else. Tomorrow it could be you. Or me. We're all on the same path, whether we realize it or not. And I can't help but wonder, are we willing to let this happen? Are we really okay with a future where only those who fit the mold get to have their voices heard? If we let this slide, if we allow this progress to silence entire generations, then what happens to us? Will we just be left behind, forgotten by the very systems we helped build? But maybe, just maybe, there's still a chance to change this. If we wake up now, if we raise our voices together, we can still fight for the future we want. But it has to start with you. So, I'll ask you, what will you do? Will you let this happen? Or will you take a stand before it's too late? The choice is in your hands. Share your thoughts with me, and let's talk about what we can do to stop this before we're all silenced.